navigating the teaching in the online space. Special welcome to our UNESCO colleagues, Ministry of Education officials, representatives from teacher education institutions, heads of primary, secondary, and tertiary institution, our partners from our distance learning and training program, Blackboard Academy, the Caribbean Center for Education Planning at the University of the West Indies, and UNICEF Jamaica. Welcome to you, our valued educators, teachers, and lecturers from across the region. Welcome to our parents. Yes, parents, we know you're here with us. Our esteemed panelists, welcome and thanks for agreeing to share today. Welcome to you all on Zoom and on YouTube. Let's begin the conversation. I now welcome our moderators, Latoya Swaby Anderson, National Education Officer, and Davion Leslie, Project Consultant for the Distance Learning and Training Program at UNESCO Cluster Office here in the Caribbean. They will guide us through today's conversation. Welcome, Latoya and Davion.
Thank you so much, Nakita. Good day, good afternoon, all. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Davion?
Indeed. Very, very happy to be here. Welcome, teachers. Greetings and salutations from sunny, usually sunny Jamaica. It's a little overcast today, but whatever the weather is on your end, whatever it looks like outside, I'm sure you are just comfortable and you are anxious and ready and looking forward to this afternoon's engagement.
Thank you so much, Davion. And at this time, we want to also thank all our persons who are joining us online, on Zoom, on YouTube, and just to share with you that the focus for this afternoon's conversation with our esteemed panelists, our educators, is to outline some of the challenges that they have encountered and opportunities as well as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the school closure and the changes that has happened in education. We also want to highlight the role that technology has played in supporting your responses as teachers in navigating the crisis, as well as to identify where you have had to put particular measures in place to address specific groups of students. And more than anything else, at the end of the day, we want to glean, we want to learn from the lessons that you have been learning and the promising practices that you have been putting into place, and that these may be applied throughout the Caribbean in our various spaces to allow us to deal with other disruptions that may happen in learning in the future. So we're really looking forward to a very comfortable, engaging conversation. And so I will turn back over to Davion, who will be introducing our panelists.
Thank you very much, Latoya. Indeed, teachers, we are more than pleased to be bringing this afternoon's presentation to you. We really believe in telling stories, and we believe that teachers have excellent stories from which we can all learn. And so this afternoon, we have 5 teachers gathered from across the Caribbean who will be sharing with you the experiences that they have had over the last 18 months or so as they have been thriving through the pandemic. And I'm being very deliberate in saying they have been thriving through the pandemic. And so I'm just going to very quickly introduce them to you in no particular order, so that you become a little bit more familiar with who our participants are. The first person I'm going to bring to your attention this afternoon is Mr. Dwighton Johnson. Dwighton Johnson. You should be seeing Mr. Johnson on your screen. He is one of the panelists who is joining us. Mr. Johnson is joining us from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and all the teachers in the room who are here from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want to give you a big shout out. There are so many Jamaican words that I would want to share. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make it a point of my duty that you do not leave here this evening without learning at least one Jamaican word, because we really believe our language is so infectious. So Mr. Johnson is a primary school teacher, and forgive me, this is the last time I will call him Mr. Johnson. From now, in the interest of the casual, relaxed conversation we will be having, I'm just going to be calling him Dwighton. So Dwighton is a primary school teacher. He specializes in mathematics. Already he has all of my respect as a math educator myself. And to top it all, he enjoys playing cricket. I wonder if you're a one-down batsman, sir. I wonder if you're a bowler, batsman, or a wicket keeper. I think we all say we enjoy playing cricket when in fact we enjoy watching it more than we enjoy playing it. Let me quickly move on though. From Jamaica, the land of wood and water, I want to introduce you to Anise. I'm going to apologize in advance for Anise. She's unable to turn on her camera. She may turn it on for a second or two just now, but she's having some connectivity issues. And to save on bandwidth, we have advised her just to keep the camera off. So she may turn on her camera for a second or two, just so you can see her. There is Anise. You better look now because you might not see her again. Greetings, Anise. Anise is one of her Jamaican teachers. She has been an educator for over 20 years, and she currently teaches at the grade 6 level, which is the final year of schooling for our primary school children here in Jamaica. She uses a quotation by Og Mandino to guide our entire teaching practice. That quotation says, "Take the attitude of a student, never too big to ask questions, never know too much to learn." And that, she says, is what guides the way she teaches. I'm now going to embarrass myself a little, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I make mistakes while I try to introduce to you Miss Ola Peters. So Tinuke Ola Peters. There is Tinuke. Again, Tinuke, forgive me. I think I'm going to have maybe 1,000 different pronunciations for your name this evening, but I promise you, I am making an effort to get it right. Tinuke is a French and Spanish teacher in a secondary school in Trinidad. That school is the Holy Faith Covenant Penal. She is currently in charge of securing official student email for all students to access virtual classes. I dare say a significant amount of burden rests on Tuneke's shoulder, especially in this day and time when accessing virtual class is so significant. And so I want to welcome the Trinidadian teachers who are in this space and give a special shout out, of course, as I should have, as I welcomed Anise earlier, also to the Jamaican teachers who I know are here. And then I'm just going to quickly skip down to Juanita. I feel like this introduction is going on too long. I'll go a little faster now. I'm going to skip down to Juanita. Juanita Eli is a language and social studies teacher, and she is from the island of Dominica. She teaches at the Dominica State College. Actually, she's a student teacher at the Dominica State College. Sorry, Juanita. Good to see you. You see Juanita there is laughing. Colleagues, I guess I'm hoping you're making a note of who is who. And then the final person that I'm going to introduce to you, and again, I'm going to apologize if I make a mess of this name. She has been schooling me even before this presentation, and I promise you I've been practicing. Her name is Nurishka. Well, she's nodding her head. So I think I got it right. Nurishka Evert. She is actually a highly experienced Curacao native with a passion for education. She has experience in managing projects in both the academic and industry settings. During her career in both private and public sector, she has and is excited to continue improve organizations and achieve student learning using ICT. So colleagues, participants, these are our panelists. We're going to be hearing from them as I turn it back over to Latoya, who will take us through the very first round of discussion. Go ahead, Latoya.
Thank you so much, Davy, and you did a better job than I will do when it comes on to calling the names. But even if I'm not saying it right, I will say it with passion, and so hopefully our panelists will not will be pleased with me. So thank you so much. And but to start off our conversation, colleagues, even before we start, just want to share with our viewing audience. I know that some persons are saying that they're having connectivity issues. If this will be shared, yes, we are recording, and so it will be shared. Just as a matter of housekeeping, of course, due to time constraints, we would love to hear from all our panelists around every issue that is raised here today, but time may not allow us to do so. And also we want to hear from the audience, you, our esteemed audience. We want to hear what your views are and your responses to the same questions that we are posing to our panelists, because I'm sure you have your own experiences to share and we can all learn from it and grow from it. And we're asking you as well, our viewing audience, to share, if you're comfortable, to share your name, but at the very least your country. We want to know the countries represented here and what area of or category of teaching, primary, secondary, early childhood, higher education. We want to hear that as well. So if you can type that in chat, wherever you are on Zoom, on YouTube, we appreciate that. So thank you so much. Again, we're encouraging you to share your experiences and your responses to the questions that are asked. We won't be able to get around to all of them because we're trying to keep it nice and short. We know teachers are very busy, and busier these days. So, but we definitely want to hear from you, and we value your being in this session with us. So now that we're going to start with our panelists, sit back, relax, and we'll have a wonderful conversation. We're going to start off. Some questions I may call a name, others I'll just throw it out and then I'll allow you to respond. But I want to start off with Norishka. Yes. Yes, and I think I got it right. Norishka, what are some of the main challenges based on your experience, your direct experience as well as indirectly? What are some of the main challenges that you believe teachers have been experiencing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially those particular ones, and how it has disrupted learning?
Good afternoon. I think in the beginning of the pandemic, one of the things that caught my eye was that the teachers felt very unprepared. As a teacher, you look at the verbal cues from your students and you can then evaluate whether or not they understood what you were explaining. But now that you have an online environment, it was very difficult to pick up on those nonverbal cues so that you can evaluate your student better. Another thing that I noticed also were that the teachers felt that one of the greatest challenges that they had in this new environment is how to maintain the students engaged, especially if they have their camera off. It was very difficult to even know if they're awake and if they are understanding what you are trying to explain. And also what I noticed were that a lot of the teachers needed to have a more structured approach in teaching the concepts that they were trying to do. Because when you're in your classroom and you have not this blended or online environment, it was different than now that you have to pick it up. Of course, we cannot even imagine the influence that not having a proper device or having internet connectivity has on the teacher. So those, I think, were the main concerns that were brought up by most of the teachers.
Thank you so much, Norishka. Over to you, Anita, Tinuke, Duwaiton, Haynes, opening that question for anyone who wants to jump in.
Okay,
Juanita,
well, I
over
must
to
agree.
you.
Yes, this is Juanita. I must agree with Miss Everts. I'm not going there, Miss Everts. I must agree with her that these are some of the initial challenges that we faced. In connection to that, one of our struggles here I can attest to was that it wasn't just lack of connectivity, but it was on our teachers' perspective, the strategies and skills were not readily here for us to jump into it as it came. So the pandemic kind of shocked us into it. So that was one of our struggles here. And devices for sure was what we need, is the material we need primary material, and that was in short supply, I must say. So it was a bit much.
It was a bit much. No, thank you. I see Tinuki shaking her head, and I see Haney's mic is open. Haney's, over to you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
One of the challenges that we encountered as teachers in Jamaica is that most of us have the knowledge to this new normal, the platform to use. So most teachers didn't know, so that was very challenging for them. The thing was, students had limited or no access to devices, and connectivity was a big issue as well. And problems with my fellow panelists as well. So those were some of the challenges that we encountered.
Thank you, Haney's. Tinuke, Dwight, and if there's anything else from you to add on this one, because this question really sets the tone, just what has been happening, what are the challenges. So I think it's important to just hear from us, as we chip in on that. Thank you, Tinuke.
Hi, yes, good job with the name. Like the others have said, similar things, access to device, not necessarily so much internet, but we did have a few cases of those. Also finding a unified platform, because of course we had a voluntary team, so different teachers were trying different platforms, but you wanted one where you could have access to everything and you don't have children jumping all over the place. So we wanted a unified platform to use as well. So those were some of the major ones, and of course some of the other things that the other teachers would have mentioned before.
Thank you, Tinuke. Dwight on, and one, yes.
Yes, I think we all experience similar challenges. Definitely with the lack of devices, internet connectivity, teachers and students being unfamiliar with the specific platform used, having to learn.
Thank you, Duaitan. So Juanita, tell us now. So this was from what was happening from the teacher's perspective. What was some of the feedback that you heard from your students? How were they experiencing? Were they happy at first? I can tell you, my daughter was happy when she heard that school was closing. It was like early summer. She was like, yay! But then it started to set in a different way. So tell us what was some of the feedback initially from your students, and what is it like now?
You experienced it as a mother, and that's exactly what it was for us as teachers. The students were thrilled. It's like no school. I mean, who isn't happy for no school? But then when the reality kicked in, like maybe a week into, and they realized of the hustle and the unpreparedness and so on, and then the parents and then the students were disappointed really at one point because they wanted to come to school. They were not able to have the leave of not just learning. I believe they missed their friends. They didn't miss the work, but they missed being around their peers and socializing and so on. So that created a damper on them. But eventually, I guess, because eventually that's what our Zoom sessions became, children interacting rather than work being done. So that was one of the reasons, and one of the things that I realized that they did miss was the socializing part of it. They missed being around their teachers physically, some of them. And some of them just wanted to be at school, be out of home. They're fed up at home, they're bored. There's nothing to do. It's the same thing every day. So you hit the nail on the head as a parent.
No, thank you very much. And that's a very important point, Juanita, because you hit it, what they were really missing. So we would love, as teachers, I'm sure our audience, we would love as teachers to say they missed learning and doing the schoolwork, as we call it, the schoolwork. But really, what they really missed, I mean, there's some, of course, like that. There's some of that, but they really missed interaction. The interaction, even with teachers that they perhaps were not their favorite teachers, but they were just happy to be around others. and to have that type of interaction. And we find that that is something that perhaps we can all see across the board. If that is something that all panelists agree with, probably we could give a thumb up or something like that if that was the same case. Okay, so definitely that was one feedback from the students. Was there anything else, colleagues, anything else that was a point of concern, thinking about from the students' perspective what they were experiencing being at home and working remotely?
I would say based on my exam groups, they were concerned about if they would be able to write the exam, if they would cover the curriculum properly. Those were serious concerns, especially with constant feedback from CXC, none of it really being very consistent. So they were really fearful of how they were going to do this exam. Would they be successful? Would they be able to actually respond to the exam? So that's one of the major concerns my exam groups had.
No, thank you for that, Tanuki. I see Narishka.
Yes, I think that there are a difference between the grade level. The younger students indeed miss the social interactivity. However, if you look at the older students, especially in the higher education or vocational schools, they don't miss that because often they have a job that they go to and then later on would do their schoolwork. So you see that. If you look at the younger students, especially if their home situation, they're trying to escape from it to come to school. If they have eating issues, like they don't have food at home and they come to school, and therefore when they come to school they get food. If they didn't come to school, therefore they didn't get food. You also have, of course, the abuse, because you have, and this is a reality, abuse in the different homes, and often they escape that abuse by coming to school, and therefore when they don't have the opportunity to escape from their home situation, you find that for them that also adds extra stress to their situation. So I just wanted to add that to it.
No, extremely important. Thank you so much, Narishka. And I think that really speaks to what's happening from the student perspective. But there's another player in the room, even as I turn at, we're going to look at what some of our audience members have been saying. They have been sharing in chat as well, and then turn over to Davian for round two. The other player, so we have the teacher, we have the student, but we also have the parents. The parents have had to step into the role. I think for them, that role was a significant shift, to step into the role of teacher or teacher's aide, teacher's assistant, or in some cases, really just teacher, full homeschool mode. And that has been really something that parents have been dealing with. And of course, teachers have to be aware of and cognizant of. So let me know, what is your perspective of the readiness and capacity of parents to support distance education? And I think I want to hear from Dwight on at first and Haney's as well, Juanita. But what are your perspective? Just how do you feel for the response that you got from your parents? Was it silence? Was it help, we need help? What was happening there? Thanks, Dwight.
In the beginning, it was a lot of help, right? Because everyone was basically caught after teachers, students, parents weren't prepared. But as we went along, parents made the necessary commitment, and now I think they are more prepared. Should we have to continue online, we will be more prepared to support the child or children.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Haney's, Juanita. Yes, Haney's, over to you.
Okay, thank you. As Dwight said earlier, in the beginning, the parents cried for help because this was new to them as ourselves. So they did not know what to do or how to navigate the platform. So they needed help so they could assist their students. Also, some of them were also reluctant. They did not want to buy into this situation because most of us don't like changes. Persons are afraid of changes. So this is telling you, why am I doing this? This is some of the attitude that we'll get from them too. But as time goes by, you have parents, because not all will buy in. You have some parents who will make the necessary adjustment and work with the teacher to get the best for their child. So that is my take.
Now, thank you so much, Hennis. And I think the last one will be to you, Juanita, and then we'll look at our audience and hand over to Davion. Juanita?
Okay, well, to agree with everybody, it was help in the beginning, but the help lasted very long for us here. The help went through up until the end when they decided, okay, let's just go back to school. Because the parents, I guess, in the heat of the moment, they were trying to wrap their heads around their situations at work, their situations with the pandemic, and now the children are home. Some of them have 2, 3 at a time in sessions in the morning to deal with. So it was a struggle, and not being able, we the teachers that were maybe struggling to understand the platforms, and then the parent, and then maybe they would think that we're more capable, and then the parents at home that know nothing but get your homework, open your books, and so on, have to be learning how to use devices and try and help this. And then it was just a frustration. They were frustrated, and you could feel the frustration because they had nobody to turn to be frustrated and lash out at, but you, the teacher. So you had to be taking all that as well. So you had to really understand where they were coming from. And as a parent myself, and as one of the colleagues said, eventually there are some, the frustration did not last for them because I guess they maybe realized the sacrifices that needed to be made, adapt as quick as possible to get things rolling. So they made the proper changes and so on. And sometimes even we, the teachers, had to understand where they were coming from and try and meet them halfway.
Wow.
So it was challenging. It still is, but we're getting there.
You're getting there. And that's a positive note. Thank you so much, Juanita. And we're hearing from our parents our teachers in the chat as well, who many of them are parents, so doing that dual role, that parents need more collaboration and consultation with the Ministry of Education. Someone said, if you don't mind me calling, that was Tracy. Marilyn said, she missed the parents' involvement. In many cases, children were home alone. And this may just be an economic reality that many parents they had work. And so they're handling that. The parents were sharing devices with students. No quiet space, that sometimes there was just a lot of drama. My daughter has said to me, Mommy, I'm hearing baby crying in the background while teacher is teaching. I'm hearing baby crying. I'm hearing pots and pans, so all of that is happening, and I said, Malika, the teachers are their parents too, so everything is happening in the space. So I'm getting overall that it was very difficult, and for some parents they started to lose interest, and that the reality is that they had to be managing the frustration as well. There was also some feedback along the other questions that the pandemic, Vivian said that it has forced our collective minds and hands to think and navigate in a different way. It's imperative now that a teacher be teacher trained, because it just someone mentioned that the level of structure, when it comes on to the online space, where that should have been the same in the classroom, but more so there has to be that type of more precise planning around how you engage, especially when you know that the parents are listening, grandmother listening, grandfather listening, uncle listening, everybody hearing what's going on when you're teaching, so there's no space for error as much, and that teachers, it's also saying that UNESCO has introduced the Blackboard and the Blackboard initiative to build capacity, and that has been very helpful, and that was coming also from Vivian. I mean, and Chanel, lastly, the lack of digital literacy among parents and teachers is also a cause for concern. And so that's one of the things that for us as UNESCO, we have seen an opportunity to support teachers in this way with the Blackboard, UNESCO Blackboard training. So I think, let me pause now, more opportunities to engage our audience as we go along, but over to you, Davion.
Thank you very much, Latoya, and thank you to the panelists who have so adequately set the stage for us so that we understand the current context that we're in. Indeed, and I've been following the conversation in the Q&A, and teachers, let me just remind you that you can put your questions in the Q&A. I know that many of you are using the chat, but the Q&A is also there. You should see a Q&A option at the bottom of your screen, especially if you're on a desktop device, and you can type your questions there and they will be answered as well. I've also been monitoring YouTube, and hello YouTube, I don't think I've greeted you properly before. I see quite a few of my friends and quite a few familiar faces over there, familiar names, and so I'm greeting you as well. I've been monitoring the YouTube conversation, and I know that there are concerns about the extent to which parents have acquired the necessary skills to help their children at home. And that might be a point for reflection more than response, but that's certainly something that I know we perhaps need to discuss a little bit more at some point. The fact that, quite frankly, in entering this contract that parents at some point had entered into with school, there was never an understanding that they will be doing as much teaching as they have done in the last few months. And so parents have understandably been frustrated by the fact that they have been doing so much teaching at home, far more than they ever decided or signed up for. And so absolutely, that is something that I think we will have to look at. And so in this second stage, and I also want to shout out Vivian in the Q&A. Vivian, I know I've seen your passionate response, and I hope you don't mind if I call it passionate, your contribution to the conversation. And I absolutely agree with you that it is important that we ensure that our teachers are equipped with training in using digital tools to effectively facilitate learning. That is something that I know it seems almost that we were caught a little unaware this time, but absolutely we have to be more mindful of that as we prepare our teachers moving forward. And so we're going to spend a few more minutes now just kind of looking at the lessons learned in the last few months. And I'm going to invite my participants to respond to a few of the issues that I will quickly raise. The first one that I want to perhaps just quickly ask the participant is to share with me a little about the way you transitioned to online learning or any form of remote/distance learning. What was your overall approach? Let me ask Nirishka to take that one up for us.
Okay. For me, because I teach information technology, I have already been in my own classroom, been using a blended learning approach in the classroom. I have a digiboard in my classroom. I have access to internet in my classroom. I make use of a lot of online materials already because of the subject that I'm teaching. So for me, it was very natural to move from that blended approach all the way on to online approach. However, what I mentioned before was a challenge regardless, because even though I was used to using that blended approach in the classroom, because you don't see your students, you still don't have the nonverbal cues. Because you used to walking around in the classroom, now that you have to sit behind a computer, it's still different. And for me, it was a lot of, anyways, going to doing some research as to how you can get to keep the engagement of your students as much as possible. What you do in the classroom doesn't work in an online environment. In the classroom, you can monitor their talking. In the online environment, you can't do that. So for me, even though it was very natural because of the subject that I'm teaching, I still found that there were challenges that I didn't think that I would have had before the pandemic hit.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Narishka. And I'm going to ask a follow-up question to the other panelists. Narishka has said that for her, it was natural. She's an IT teacher. She had a classroom that there was already a very strong culture of using technology as a part of your instructional delivery. But let me ask the other panelists, is there anybody who's almost at the very opposite end of the scale from Narishka? When this thing hit, you were nowhere near where Nurishka was at that point. You were almost at the very opposite end of the scale. Who feels they were furthest away from where Nurishka was when this pandemic hit? I see your mic is open, Anis. Can you go ahead?
Yes, thank you. When the pandemic hit, it was really by surprise. Seeing that I'm from a rural community where internet
struggling to hear you,
access would be a problem. I hear now. It's any better?
A little better, but go ahead. Let's see if we can make it through.
Okay. Since my school is located in the rural community, so having internet is an issue for the students. So even if as a teacher you are able to teach online, we're having challenges because we want to teach on, and we were not accustomed to any form of learning in the get-go. So what I did, I engaged in learning sessions like with JTZ. So I did training with them, so I will be familiar with different platforms. But having that knowledge was still a challenge because the students were not exposed, or the school did not have that capacity for me to carry out that function because we were mainly used to WhatsApp. So the thing we had to use in the initial stage until persons were more exposed to the Google platform and we were bringing the students on. So that was the approach where I have to learn on my own, take the initiative to learn on my own, as well as try and use other medium to get learning out to my students, whether WhatsApp or printed textbooks.
All right, thank you. Tinuke, Dwight, and Juanita, were your experiences any different from either of those two that you heard? And I don't know if you heard all of what Amy said, but essentially she was really out there in the boonies, rural area. The school had no culture of technology. They had no experience with this thing. And quite frankly, they weren't even ready when this thing started. WhatsApp was like what they were using at first until they transitioned into a learning management system, such as Google Classroom can be called. And then you have heard Nurishka's experience, which is far different. Dwight and Tinuke, Juanita, what was your experience like? What was your approach really as you started teaching online?
Mine was closer to Nariska's. Before COVID was even a thought, I was already trying to be an e-teacher using technology, trying to stay away too much from the textbooks. A few teachers as well, they were already having classrooms on Edmodo and things like that. So when the pandemic hit and we had a voluntary term, we were using different platforms, testing it out. We did team teaching across year levels. So, we were always communicating with each other. So any technique that worked for us, we all tried to implement or tweak or, just best case scenario for what we had. The only challenge I would say is that a lot of children use telephones. So a lot of what you may want to do does not work well on a telephone. So we really had to reconsider how we did maybe, you might do a simpler PowerPoint because it may not open on their phone. It depends on the type of phone as well, because all devices are not equal. Right. So, there were a lot of things we had to take into consideration that you really never thought of before.
Okay. Do I see you nodding your head? Was it a different experience? Because I want to kind of ask a little bit more refined question. Did anybody not use technology? Did anybody start out not using technology? You perhaps had some other kind of modality. Perhaps you were sending home test papers or learning material and that kind of thing. Did everybody just started with technology? Wow.
No,
Yes.
no. For me, it was a mixture. It was a mixture of both, because as Miss Everts and Tinuke said, as teachers for the past time, even before the COVID pandemic, we have been competing with the tablets and technology. So we always had to find new strategies to bring to engage the students in the classroom. So yes, the teachers would get the practice to use the different platforms, to use all the technology, but we brought the technology, but the students did not know how to maneuver the technology with us. So in a sense, our practice was on the selfish side, because we were using it to get them, but we never thought of, okay, there might be a time where you may need to get it yourself. And I believe that's what COVID did to some of us teachers. It brought us to the realization that we are not the only ones having to use the technology. We have to make our students technology savvy. Yes, some of them may have had devices, but the reality of it is, what do the students do on the tablets? Mm-hmm. Most they might download a game, play a game, or go to YouTube, but then having to have them maneuver the platforms, they did not know. And then the students that did not have devices, or may have had devices and don't know how to work them at all, no internet access, I had to literally go back and forth to school on selected days to send home packages, prepare packages to ensure that these students don't miss out on anything. And as Henis was saying, WhatsApp was a great deal of a saver when it comes to that, because parents have phones, regardless of the children not having devices. So that's how we stayed connected. We tried our best to stay connected.
Right. Thank you. Dwighton, how ready were you think, to actually jump into this technology thing once the pandemic hit?
How ready was I?
Mm-hmm.
Not much ready. In the beginning, well, I had a little bit of experience with some of the technologies, and before in the classroom, would have been accustomed to use PowerPoints, YouTube videos. So when the pandemic hit and school has to be closed, my school, teachers then moved to using platform like the Google Classroom. But for me, at first, we provided the materials asynchronously, so there were no live sessions. But as we went along and things got better, then we started to have live sessions with students and interact.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. Tinuke, I know you were closer to Nurishka in terms of your own experience. So am I correct in assuming that you were ready to go once this thing started in terms of technology? Great, excellent.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
I should also point out to our listening audience or viewing audience that these 5 teachers have participated in a UNESCO Blackboard training course that would have empowered them to plan and deliver online lessons. I'm just going to quickly ask, and I want each participant to kind of just quickly share in what ways and how has that course supported you really to respond to the pandemic, especially with respect to how you engage students?
For me, it blew my mind. What do I mean by that? Because like I mentioned before, was used to working in a blended environment. So I thought I was ready. But when I did the course, I realized how much more the course taught me to prepare not just my lessons, but also the way that the material needs to be created and presented to the student, how you divide your hour or 45 minutes that you have the time to keep them engaged, how do you switch from the delivery to the practical areas within that. So for me, any teacher who is currently listening, who hasn't yet participated to this course, do that. It's an invaluable tool that you will learn. And for me, who is an information technology teacher, found it to be excellent. So you will learn so much. You will learn so much that it's going to blow your mind like it blew mine. I'm sure about it.
Right. Thank you, Narishka. Thank you for the affirmation and the way you have recommended the course to the teachers. I'm sure we'll put a link in the chat at some point that you can click on to join it to sign up for that course. Duaitan, how has the course really impacted the way that you have planned and delivered lesson?
Well, as Ms. Edwards said, there was a lot of information, right? And some of the information you would know as teachers that you would have done in the efforts to deliver content online. However, there is also a lot that you become aware of that where you realize that there are some areas you have overlooked, which you should have really been looking at, things you might have taken for granted, especially where accessibility and usability applies. How do students interact with the content you provide, as well as looking at disabilities students may have, whether a little hair in a sight, where sight is concerned. How do you help these students? Right, the course exposes you to a lot of these things. It's very useful. It was very informative.
Yes, thank you. Tinuka, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to reinforce what Dwighton said, you know, there are a lot of things, if you don't have experience with certain children of different abilities, there are a lot of things you're going to not take into consideration because you've never had that experience. So myself, I am dyslexic. So there's always a lot of, you know, there are texts that I use, different fonts for dyslexic children. But then we have autistic children in our school, and there are things that you have to take into consideration when you can't have too many flashy things. It can be, you know, it can be too colorful. These are triggers for them. So there are a lot of things that unless you actually are made aware of it or you're interacting with children like that, you're never going to know. So the course really does highlight a lot of the things that you really take for granted because you just assume all children are on the same level and they really are not.
Right, indeed. And I mean, I really want to underscore that because the truth is, and I'm so glad that both Dwight and you, Tinuke, have emphasized that point, just the extent to which we have to be mindful of the accessibility features that are built into the technology and the way how the interface with the technology might trigger some of the challenges that our students are having. And so absolutely, I'm so glad that you have taken that away with you from the course. Enis, are you having any better luck with your connectivity? Can you just quickly give us a word as to what the course did for you?
I hope so. I hope I'm having better connectivity.
Not much better, but we will give you a chance.
Not much? Okay. It was really a mind right now. It reminded us of some things that we really knew and took for granted. It was very insightful because it helped us to cater to the different learners. So we need to cater for the different learners. So that was one of the things I got from it. Also, it helped us to assess the different learners in the sense that we, instead of just giving one test, the test can be done multiple times till they master the concept. So that was one thing I like from the course. So when we got the material to interact with, we were able to the test more than once. And with the discussion, that were posed,
it's really a challenge.
You were not able to answer somebody's question unless you presented one of your own.
Right. I'm hoping that the participants were able to discern from you. And Enis, I think you're really having some connectivity issues.
Not hearing?
Oh no, we heard as much as we could, but it wasn't as clear as it should have been. Juanita, you are the last person we will take from. Just your experience with the course and what it did for you as an educator.
Well, as all of them rightfully said, I'm going to say that I was a virgin to the knowledge that there were so many ways that we could get the special needs children involved. And I am just so sorry that the knowledge came after the pandemic, because it would have been real nice to know about it before, to prepare for them. Even before the pandemic, when I went through some of the stuff that I learned on Blackboard that made for them, I realized that these are things that could be used in an everyday setting. It's not just necessarily because COVID shut us down and we're home. These are things that the children could use within the classroom on an everyday, regular basis to ensure that they keep up and they learn together with their peers that we regard as quote unquote normal. And to me, it was amazing and I appreciated that. Okay, and that is something that I left with and I will never stop talking about it. And also, I reached a point where through the backboard, I figured, okay, so maybe this is what I was doing wrong all the time. When it comes to timing and planning and executing some of the strategies that I was taught, some of the strategies that I looked at, it really helped. Even today, as we're still planning to go back to online, it still sticks with me, and I'm realizing through practice right now that it does make it a lot easier learning the skills. So I was very grateful for that mind of peace. I feel like I'm ready for war now. We can go.
Okay. All right, great. I just want to ask a very quick question. I just ask one person. I'm going to ask, why not ask Tinuke? Aside from this Blackboard course, what kind of experience did you have with professional development, and how important was that for you as you transitioned into online learning?
We had sessions in ministry organized for teachers across the country. So before we had exposure to, access to Teams, because they were using Microsoft 365, and we got teachers' accounts. So that kind of helped our process, because all our teachers have official accounts, which kind of determined which platform we would choose. Since we already had these accounts, we didn't need to get for teachers and students. It was just to work on the ones for the students. And then personally, anything I came across, because I am into the technology in education, so anything I saw, I would try. So I did my own personal professional development, as well as the ones offered by the government. And, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm going to ask Duaitan, and I wish I had more time to ask more of you this question. But Duaitan, it's been about 18 months, certainly here in Jamaica, since schools were closed. We're talking about from March 2020 to now. I suspect it might be about that time all across the Caribbean. If you could tell yourself that was 18 months younger, what is important to do as you respond to this pandemic? In the classroom, what is a piece of advice that you would tell yourself? Now that you have done 18 months of this, what have you found that works that you wish you had known 18 months ago? If anybody else wants to jump on this, you can go ahead. Well, go ahead, Duaitan.
That's what I found at work is during the online classes, it's important to keep students interactive. Keep the session interactive, allowing the students to speak, giving them time to interact with each other. Right?
Okay,
even
good.
during instructional time, or maybe even after instructional time, you can have a little get together on the online platforms with students.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep them interactive.
Good. A single sentence from you, Juanita. Same question. And I'm going to come to each of you with a single sentence.
Okay, well, I would tell myself that think of the children, and while I'm thinking of the children, ensure that I make provision for my parents as well, because they're the teacher in their classroom, and I'm just the facilitator.
Indeed. Narishka, you're one thing that you would tell yourself?
I think I'm taking it on a higher level, vision and leadership to execute that vision, because no person is alone. So some of the things that you would need to do needs to be done also in your entire school district. And if I'm talking about my school district, which is the public school district, we have a vision, and that vision is being executed, which will enable all the teachers of the entire public school district to benefit from that one vision. And that vision is to use the information and the knowledge in order to promote this online learning environment.
Okay, I hear you, and I definitely have to wrap. So I'm just going to give Tinuke one last sentence, and I will very quickly, without any further ado, hand over to Latoya. Go ahead, Tinuke.
I would just say patience. Everybody's going through the same thing, but it takes some longer than others, so just patience.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you very much, guys. Latoya, I'm handing the ship back to you now.
Thank boy, Davian. I mean, it feels as though, we have gone 1 hour in and it feels as though we need more time. There's so much chatter in the chat, and we're hearing from all angles. We don't even have time to start unpacking it. Teachers, educators across the board, we appreciate you, but even if we don't get a chance to speak to what you're saying in the chat, they're reacting to each other. People are talking and just reacting to each other, and we appreciate that because we want to keep the dialogue. We want to start the dialogue and keep it going. So I just wanted to also share that we are at 4 minutes to 4, and we did say 1 hour, but we are craving your indulgence for a little more time, even as we come into the final round of our discussion. And we also definitely want to honor some of the recommendations that have been made in the chat. Boy, Davian, I don't even know where to start, but just to say that we're hearing as well from Dr. Chantal Moore, who is at the University of the West Indies School of Education, that she's saying that teaching has now become synonymous with the open concept plan. We'd have to unpack that. We don't have time to unpack that now, but so important, in terms of content and conversations with students, which is not just the school now becoming a part of the community and engaging the community. And she's saying that this is a good thing. So even as we're saying that the pandemic comes with its challenges, it has also come with opportunities. And so teachers are saying that they agree all teachers should take ICT lessons, and the conversation goes on. There were also some questions, because I'm also getting on WhatsApp, Davian, based on the questions that you have asked, that there is much more emphasis has been placed on academic learning, but what about the students' mental health? And I think that takes us into the third round of the conversation. The questions are around mental health, for the students as well for the teachers, as in addition to what has been done to help to stimulate motivation. So we're moving a little away from the academic side of it for this last round, but more looking at the type of partnership, the support, those psychosocial elements that have to be taken into consideration for students, and also what additional support teachers need. So we hear about the connectivity. We're seeing that. Even now we're experiencing that, Hanies. We thank you. Just continue to stay on with us because we want to hear from you, so we know we understand the connectivity issues. But that question to you panelists, the psychosocial, the mental health of students, how concerning is that for you, based on your experience, and more so, what support can be put in place, probably at the teacher level, at the home level, at the school level overall? What support can be put in place, or you have seen put in place? I'm going to open it. That's a big one. So for anyone who wants to take it, Tanuki, because I see you nodding, I'm going to give it to you first. Over to you, and then anyone else.
I'm just agreeing with your comment, but I think sense of community, our school does a really good job in terms of that, creating the culture of community. We always say proud to the HFCP, parents, students, teachers, we are all a big community. One of the good things is our school actually does have a guidance counselor, and we have sessions timetabled in for the students as well. Also, I mean, it could be a bad thing as well, but I guess it's a very positive thing during this time, given the context, that parents and students could reach out to teachers easily, and we respond as quickly as we can. So it kind of doesn't create boundaries, but at the same time, you're trying to ensure that they are getting through it. It's hard on everyone, and the children, they're really in a situation they have absolutely no control over. So you're just trying to be there and, just support community. I think that's the best we could do at this time for everyone.
No, thank you, Tanuki. Narishka, Narishka, Juanita, anyone else, this is really one of those questions that you really sometimes have to stop and think, how can we support our students? And I just want to mention that in the chat they're saying, and teachers too, and teachers need support too. Yeah. Anyone who wants to take that, to add to what Tanuki has said.
Well, I agree with what Tanuki had said. And I think a lot of it has to do with being aware of the situation, being aware in your students' behavior. And what I mentioned in the beginning, that you do know that there is abuse going on. You do know that children are hungry. You do know that a lot of parents have lost their jobs. And because they have lost their job, there is a financial strain in the family. And because of that, that financial strain also affects the students as well. And there is a lot we can do, but there's a lot we can't do either. I know some schools help with food and breakfast, yet others don't have that option within them. I know that governments contribute, but because of the pandemic, a lot of the funds go towards the workers that also need help because they lost their job. So this is a big subject that I think that all of us can contribute the way we can contribute, the little bit that we can contribute by looking at the students within our classroom and being aware as to how can we help that one student.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Narishka. If there's anyone else who wants to add to that, just how we can support. But what I'm hearing too is the whole school approach as well as the one-to-one support, for our students. Juanita.
Yes, I agree with what everybody says. And to add to it, the reality of it all is frustration happens. And with the pandemic came a vast amount of frustration. And as Tanuki, I believe, rightly said, our children are feeling it, even if they are not the adults losing their jobs or the adults having to go to work, leaving children home. They feel the frustration of mommy and daddy at home. And sometimes when we have the most I believe that we can do as teachers, because right now they're out of our reach, is provide a time for them. Whether it is a Zoom session or whatever it is, let's come on, let's talk. How is everybody doing? Let them express themselves, give them the platform, the time, make the time to have them talk. And I believe that's important for us to give them our ear at times. I know it's stressful, and we, the teachers, need to find that space for us to vent as well. Venting helps. People don't like to talk, but people need to learn to talk. Even if you talk to yourself, I talk to myself a lot. People think I'm crazy, but that's okay. That's my way of venting. Venting works. It eases the stress. You scream, you jump, you shout. And also, as I think somebody mentioned about the physical health of it all, it comes with the mental health as well. We have to remember that the children are sitting, we are sitting constantly wholly, and it can become depressing. It can become so depressing. So the children are still feeling that. So what we feel as teachers, the children feel it as well. Okay? What we feel as parents, the children feel it as well. And take it from a teacher, mommy, there are times you just have to tell them, okay, no work, no nothing, just go. Free up, play, run in the yard, get a few bruises. We need to give them that time. It's important as well.
No, very important. No, very, very important. And then there's the online stress. You mentioned that the stress of being online for a long time. So to get away from that, and I'm just responding based on what I'm seeing in the chat simultaneously, that persons were saying that, really find the time that you mentioned as well, to be available if your students want to talk to you on the phone, in other ways, one-to-one students that you're not hearing from, you're not seeing, try to find a way to just connect with them, even outside outside of the class time. So that's very important. And I also saw, I just want to share that another teacher shared with me that she just really allowed for form time when she's not in the class, you know, meaning she or more as an observer, so that there is not a class time, putting in more form time where the children just talk. You know, and it happened by what we'd call in Jamaica buck up, where one day the teacher never came in, and then the students just felt as though they had space for them, and they talk about all that happening with them and how they're frustrated, and they just had a talk shop, you know. So she said she started to arrange more time like that for them, just to have that with some guidelines, you know, so it doesn't get out of place, but allow for that open talk among the students. Which takes me to the other question, which I see coming in. Just one of two more questions from my end. Parents, you know, how can we better support parents? That's a question coming in. How have you been working with your parents? Because I know we talked about the challenges that parents have been having, but we're now looking at strategies to support parents. I mean, very concrete way. What needs to happen to get the parents who are not getting on board? So this one now, okay, so Narishka, come to center screen, so I'll just throw it to Narishka.
Helping parents is very important. As Juanita was talking about the teachers, I kept thinking about helping the teachers as well. And a lot of us are parents, teachers. But helping the parents is, of course, very important. The help that we can provide is our time and our assistance in helping them understanding what needs to be done. Helping the parents means also from the side of the teacher that you have to have your organization done, you have to have structure, you have to have the information readily available so that you can help the parents to help the students. Because if you don't have that presented in such a way, the parents doesn't know what they need to do, especially if you have more children at home and you have to take care of all of them. How can you do that if you don't have a very structured approach from the teacher that you can take and help the students with? Of course, I see in the pandemic that a lot of the parents try to become teachers themselves, trying to explain the material. That is difficult, of course, for some of the parents as they're not familiar with the subjects that is being taught. But I guess from our side as teachers, give them our time, give them have more meetings or availability. WhatsApp works, even the Zoom works, even the among other areas you have also the Teams that work so that you can help the parents with that.
Thank you. So we're saying use old school methods, use new school methods as well. Whatever it is that works. We're looking in the chat, and Davian, feel free to jump in if you see anything as it relates to the strategies for psychosocial, the mental health. Any suggestions coming in from our chat, from our Q&A, as well as supporting parents to be able to it's all about the students. Say at the middle, at the core of it is the students. So all the different players who want to see the students succeed or learners succeed. So Davian, feel free to come in, because my last question really to our panelists is, you know, I think we can all agree that things have shifted. You know, the world has shifted. Teaching and learning has shifted. Probably not in everything, but it has definitely, there has been some shifts in how we this organism we call student engagement, right? Or teaching and learning. What would you say as it relates to the preparation of new and beginning teachers, those teachers who are now coming on board, those teachers who are going into teachers college, those persons who are thinking of teaching, you know, what would be your advice, you know, with this digital turn, as it relates to how can beginning and new teachers be better prepared to navigate this new reality? Over to Nuki, I was doing so well all along. Yes. And then we
You
still want to
really
hear
like to
from
give
you,
me all the
Hanice.
hard questions to start with. I would say keep an open mind, be very flexible, do as much research as you can, Understand that, your best is only your best, but there's always a way to make it better. You really just have to be flexible, open-minded, research a lot, just research strategies. Doing a course like this one would help you a lot with that. You are exposed to so many strategies and approaches that you would have never thought of, you would never have encountered. They're not really thought, it really is a streamlined course. So courses like these will help out a lot when it comes to the virtual and the blended learning.
Thank you so much. Hanys, we're gonna try because we don't want to leave you. We're leaving no one behind. So over to you, Hanys. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Anyone else who wants to jump in around that? This is our wrap up. Word of advice, word from the wise as it relates to our new and beginning teachers. Juanita.
Okay, well, to add to what Ms. Everest and Tinuke said, I'm adding organization to that. Being open-minded to being as organized as you can. Yes, we're only humans and sometimes we may feel like we have superpowers, but for every superpower, there's a kryptonite, and it's okay to fall short sometimes. Just start again. It's okay to take breaks for yourself, because as people rightfully say, we teachers do have lives as well. It's okay to take a break, refresh yourself and start over. It's all right. Also, when organizing, to add to the question that was asked previously, remember you're planning for your parents as well. So you want them to be almost as equipped as you to continue the process at home. So when organizing and being open-minded, remember them because they're replacing you right now.
No, excellent planning. We're planning. Teachers were planning for the parents as well. So that's a part of the lesson plan. Every time you're going online, we're planning for the parents as well. And I see where Shanique Neil was saying, new teachers, be open-minded, ask for help, research and apply different strategies. Vivian keeps on saying, we need to continue to explore the topic of mental health. We may just need to have a session on that one, and someone said earlier that mental health affects physical health as well. So, I mean, there's so much perspective when it comes on to this, but I think at this point, we really want to come to a wrap. We want to come to a wrap. We don't want to keep you away any longer from your students, your preparations, your children as well. So we really want to come to a wrap. And I just want to close this session as Davion brings some highlights of some of the key messages as he prepares to come on to share with you that a teacher, a friend of mine who's also a parent, she said she has a child who is generally in face-to-face was very quiet, and now in online is answering every question. But then she started to hear whispers in the background. She was hearing whispers in the background every time she asked a question, and she saw the child looking to the left and looking to the right. Eventually, she found out that grandma, uncle, and cousin, they're a part of the class as well. So, so it's the new reality that we're in. It's the new reality that we're in. Thank you, panelists. Over to you, Davion.
Indeed, thank you very much, Latoya. Absolutely, there are so many things that we're doing now that nobody expected that we would have been doing, even say 4 or 5 months ago. And so indeed, and I certainly want to commend the panelists for so ably sharing with us and so frankly revealing their own practices. There are quite a few questions in the chat, and I'm so sorry, but we definitely won't be able to take any more. Colleagues, I am tremendously sorry that we can't engage you any longer, but our time absolutely has expired. And so even as we come to the end of this afternoon's engagement, I made a few points, even as I heard them, those points that I know stayed with me, resonated with me as I heard them. And I'm going to just kind of very quickly share 3 of those points with you. The first is that the panelists experience significant issues with technology access and availability, adequacy, the functionality, connectivity issues, all of those problems that I think by now we're all familiar with. The point that kept coming up though was that we should be willing to learn and to explore. We should grow in different and unexpected directions. There are certainly multiple applications and digital services and platforms out there that are doing very well the job that we're struggling to do manually. And so we should be prepared to integrate these in the classroom once they become available. Also use whatever technology is available. And so it may be that you are using a learning management system, or it may be that you're using WhatsApp, or it may be that you're printing paper and sending home to students and collecting them back at the end of the week, but just engage your students using whatever is available. Parental support has dwindled as the pandemic has dragged on. What was a novelty and an interesting thing at first, where parents were involved in Zoom lessons and so on, that has passed, and in Jamaica we said that's upkeep. And so parents have gotten frustrated. They are now doing far more work than they are signed up for. And so ensuring that we are structured. And no, Juanita kept saying this, and I certainly want to bring it back as a highlight: being structured, develop routines, being organized. These things help our parents to also assist the students. And then the final point that I just want to touch on quickly is the importance of taking advantage of training opportunities that become available. Of course, again, I have to make a plug for the Blackboard course. Dr. Moore posted in the chat just now that she's absolutely recommending it as well for our beginning teachers, but also certainly, even if you're an experienced teacher, we would encourage you to take a look at that and to sign up for that. Of course, just ensure that you stay abreast and that you participate in whatever PD opportunities present themselves. And then absolutely finally, of course, is the importance of self-care and mental health. This is something that we have to ensure that we build into our programs. We have to be sensitive to our students' needs. We have to give them the opportunity to just talk without the idea that everything has to be structured learning. Sometimes just giving them a space to talk and to interact within the virtual space is very effective. And so those are some of the PowerPoints that I took away from the session. And I'm sure you might have taken yours as well. But I'm going to turn over quickly now to Nikita, who I think will give us our vote of thanks and any other reminders that we may need to be aware of.
Thank you so much, Davion and Latoya. Right now on your screen, everyone, before we go any further, before you leave us, there is a poll, and we're just asking you, please, can you just complete that? We want to know, how do you feel? How did you feel about today's Teachers Talk? Tell us by completing this poll. But what an afternoon it has been. The conversation has been rich. I'm sure we've all learned and understood and taken something from today's session, from the teacher, the student, and the parent's perspective. This conversation, I can see, is just the beginning. Perhaps it's just the beginning. Based on what we're seeing in the comments, we can carry on this conversation. We can have more teachers talks. Wink, wink, everyone. What an opportunity we have had here to meet as a Caribbean community. I mean, that is remarkable. We are sharing from 5 different countries, and we have many others to share from. And we are meeting as a Caribbean community to share and to come out better because of this conversation, because of these experiences, because of these lessons. And so not just from our panelists, but also from persons who attended, who commented in the Zoom chats. We are taking it from you. We're taking the lessons. We're going to share them. We're going to find a way to share them for you and your colleagues. Also the YouTube comments, we don't forget you. We know you're over there. We see you. We have taken them. Please, thank you so much. Special thanks to our moderators for your eloquence. Thank you so much for guiding us through this forum. Wonderfully done. And to our amazing panelists. Wow, I'm proud to say that you are teachers. You have represented very well. You have represented your country and you have represented your profession very well. Thank you for sharing your experience and opening the floor for others to do the same. Teachers, educators, if you are in need of training to enhance your skills to teach in the online space, this is your opportunity to sign up for our UNESCO's distance and learning training program. I'm going to just ask for it to be placed in the chat right now. You can also visit our website so that you can sign up. You will see the link there. The deadline is coming. It's actually tomorrow, 12 noon, Jamaica time. But based on what we're seeing, there may be opportunities for it to be open a little longer because the course starts on September 28th, which is next week, Tuesday. We will see how we can, maneuver that. But we hear you, we see you, we know that you want to sign up. But I urge you, if you are here and you are listening right now and you need access to this training, don't hesitate. Sign up right now. Don't let it miss you. Thanks again all for attending, for sharing, for commenting. We truly wish for you a successful academic year. Let's not allow COVID-19 to defeat us, but let us become skilled to master circumstances like this. Distinguished colleagues, partners, educators, parents, friends, do continue to have a lovely and blessed afternoon. On behalf of the UNESCO team, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of afternoon.